I'd guess that many of you guys have done some do-it-yourself projects at home. Maybe you've added on to the bathroom. Maybe you've built a whole wing to the house. Maybe you've just fixed that one wall up, put a pallet wall up, whatever it is. I would guess that you all have participated in the life at some level of redoing some pieces of your house. And maybe you've gotten to that point where you're almost done. Wives, I know you've told your husbands a time or two about the time, or about what they don't quite have done with the project, right? You maybe didn't get that last couple electrical outlets covered, or you forgot the base trim still got to be done. You got to just touch up those couple spots of paint. Whatever that might be, you didn't quite finish. You got distracted. You got distracted by the things of life. Maybe some other bills came in and you just didn't have enough. Now, if it was outlet covers, they're only 39 cents. So that's no excuse, men. But maybe something happened that stopped you financially. Maybe you noticed that the Packers started training camp and you've been reading every article about if the new coach and the old quarterback can get along. Maybe you got busy with life, going to kids' events, grandkids' events, etc., and something just stopped you from taking those last final steps of getting it all done. We've all probably been there if we've done that type of work before. As we continue our study today in the book of Nehemiah, we've been talking now for weeks about this wall, about this wall that Nehemiah has been called by God to leave Susa, the capital city in Persia, 1,000+ miles away, to come all the way back to his home country, his hometown, so to speak, of Jerusalem, to rebuild the wall there, to fortify the city. And he'll tell us today, as we look in chapter 6, he's almost done. In fact, all the patchwork has happened. All the pieces of the wall have been rebuilt that need to. Only thing that's left, he says, is the gates, the doors that fully seal in the wall. And we're going to hear how his last days go there on the wall. We're going to see some familiar characters, some people, some guys. If you've been here, you know them, Sanballat and Geshem and Tobiah. I'm calling them kind of the three amigos. They keep coming up, right? These three guys, we keep hearing about everything they can do to distract the wall from being accomplished. They're trying it, and today that's exactly what's going to happen. They see, their scouts have told them, the only thing left is the doors. And so they're going to do anything they can in what we see in chapter 6 today to stop it. But near the end of chapter 6, we're going to see that the wall does indeed get built in 52 days. It's incredible to think about today if we got that project done in 52 days, let alone some couple thousand years ago. It's amazing to see God work in that. So that's where we're going to go. Nehemiah chapter 6, if you want to turn there in a pew Bible or a Bible you brought on your own, we will, of course, have the words on the screen as well. We'll just work through these distractions and see how Nehemiah, as a tremendous leader, responds to them. Starting in verse 1. When word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of the enemies that I had rebuilt the wall, and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not yet set the doors in the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message: "Come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono." But they were scheming to harm me. So I sent messengers to them with this reply: "I'm carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave and go down to you?" 4 times they sent me that same message, and each time I sent them the same answer. And so these 3 amigos, they see what's happening. They know that their time is almost up. They've tried anything up to this point to get the work to stop. They've tried to mock them and ridicule them. They've tried to get after the workers, to get them to dissent away from Nehemiah. And now they're going to try one last round of things, because they know that once that wall gets built, it's not just that Jerusalem is back again in business, but they're going to be an adversary. They're going to be somebody that might be up to something. And so they're nervous about that. And so this time they try, like, hey, let's get Nehemiah out of there. Let's get him out to the plains. The plain of Ono that's talked about here is about 20 miles away from Jerusalem. So they're trying to get Nehemiah out of there. to meet up maybe for a summit of sorts. Hey, maybe hey, the work is almost done. What's going to happen now? We need to be able to coexist here as countries, as communities. We need to be able to get along. Maybe they took that angle. Maybe they insinuated perhaps that they were sorry for all they had done. Boy, we sure were jerks to you guys as you try to do that. Let's try and make friends again. Maybe they were, again, implying that since soon Israel's going to be up and running, we need to figure out how to get along. And so it's kind of a logical argument. As each of us, we need to be thinking about what's to come, right? So Nehemiah, as a leader, probably has to be thinking about, okay, when the wall's done, what's it going to look like with our neighbors here? But Nehemiah knew that they were up to no good. They weren't just trying to be friends here all of a sudden. They were scheming against him, he recognizes. They were doing whatever they could to stop it. And so he sends back a reply 4 times. They keep asking, hey, come on out to, oh no, I have much more important work to do here. You know, that at first glance, again, it seems a little reasonable to us in the 21st century to imagine this conversation. And when we see Nehemiah's response, he comes off a bit snarky. Like, no, guys, I'm a little too busy with something far more important than you. Far more important than how our countries are going to get along or our people are going to get along. We got work to do here that doesn't involve me and you. But it's really just a good answer. It's a wise answer, a wise response that Nehemiah shows to those guys. Because that's what he came to do. That's what God had sent him to do, to leave Susa, to head over to Jerusalem. His single-minded task was to rebuild that wall, to build back up Jerusalem. He wasn't distracted here by what was going to come next. Again, it doesn't say he never thought about it. He just knows right now this job has to get done before I get distracted by anything else. He demonstrated to all those people that were out with hammer in hand along the wall for those 50-plus days to this point that they mattered. Remember last week, they were getting a little bit tired. Some of them were broke. They had stopped working. At home, they didn't have their farmland wasn't being taken care of. They were getting devastated, so to speak, by these days. But he shows them, no. We are going to finish the deal. We're getting this done. We're doing it the right way. We are not going to lose all that you all have put into this project. And so after Nehemiah rejects them for the 4th time, they're like, well, let's try something new. And so hear what it says in verse 5. Then the 5th time, Sanballat again sends a letter. He sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hand was an unsealed letter. So here's the part that us 21st century people need to hear. That's a big deal. This unsealed letter is a major detail to the story. So let me show you why. So in that day, they didn't have a nice envelope that they licked shut, sealed it, sent it on to him, to Nehemiah. No, it would have been a piece of paper. It would have been rolled. It would have had a roll around it. It would have been a wax imprint would have been put on that piece of paper from Sanballat to Nehemiah that made it clear that nobody else has read this information. This is a confidential piece of information that I'm sending you from one leader to another. It's a big detail to understand that letter wasn't like that. It didn't have that seal. It was an unsealed letter, which meant everybody from that aide, from when he left Sanballat to the time he got to Nehemiah, had a right to see that letter or had access to the letter. In our day, it would be similar to how each of us, if I was going to send you a letter in the mail, I licked it shut, I put a stamp on it, you saw those little squiggly lines above the stamp, you went to your P.O. box or mailbox and saw a letter, you'd know that letter, if it was unsealed, most likely didn't get read by anybody between them and me. Same thing, if I sent you an email and it went directly to you and you saw that there was nobody else attached to it, you know that outside of the government, nobody else saw that email, right? You knew that information was just between me and you. Now that's different than if the letter came all ripped apart. That's different than if you saw that I had CC'd 50 other people or the whole company on the email. It's different than if I posted the letter on Facebook or I took an ad out in the Lakeland Times and just displayed the whole letter on the back page. you'd know that there's a difference in those, which is exactly what Nehemiah is thinking as he receives this unsealed letter. The whole world knows just what I'm about to read. And so here's what it said. It is reported among the nations, and Geshem says it's true, that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and therefore you're building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you're about to become their king, and have even appointed prophets to make this proclamation about you in Jerusalem. There is a king in Judah. Now this report will get back to the king back in Persia. So come, let's meet together. Let's figure out how we can respond to this, Nehemiah. How can we do a little damage control? Now, in our world, we know, especially since the last election, these two words, fake news, right? This is kind of the original fake news. This was a grasp, an attempt to diminish the character of Nehemiah and do whatever they could to stop him, to stop the rumor, to stop the workers from working by essentially starting a rumor. They throw around logical sounding arguments. We all kind of work like that, right? We wonder, why does he really want that promotion? What is she really up to as she does this? We often think that way, right? And so it's a logical thought that those leaders would wonder, why does he really want to build the wall? What are they really doing over there? And so it sounded like, here I just thought they were just trying to do something nice, but maybe there's more to it. Would be an easy temptation for the people to follow. But Nehemiah is good. His character is strong. His reputation stays strong. He knows his true intentions. You see, in our world, I bet some of you have heard these words. You know what I heard? You know what I heard? When you hear those words, plug your ears. Nothing good is coming after that. When somebody says it, maybe you've been the one. I know I have a few times. You know what I heard about, right? When those words come out, bad things are coming. Very often the information shared after those words will be tainted. It could be false. It could be assumptions. Even if the information is true after those words, it will most likely be an attempt to diminish somebody's character, to damage somebody's reputation, to stir up contentiousness among people. And so my guess is some of us have been there before. We've been on maybe both sides of the you know what I heard, on both sides of rumors. So how might we react to rumors being shared about us? If you're like me, it comes pretty natural to try and set the record straight, to try to protect. No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't do that. Maybe I quick sent out an email. You might have heard that somebody say something about me, but I didn't, right? That's natural for us to do first, to make sure that we're not misunderstood or misperceived. But that's not how Nehemiah responds. Look how he responds strongly. He says, I sent him this reply. Nothing like you're saying is happening. You're just making it up in your head. They were all trying to frighten us, he says, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not be completed. But I prayed, now strengthen my hands. You see, Nehemiah knows his intentions. He is self-confident in a good way. He knows why he's there. He knows what he came to do. He knows what the job is that he's there. He's not scared. At least he doesn't seem scared about how he's perceived among those other kings or how he might be perceived about their accusations. Even if the whole world had seen this Facebook post, this unsealed letter, he boldly speaks the truth, that none of what these men are spewing or speculating is true. They're just grasping at straws. And even more importantly than just saying, you guys are crazy, I didn't do that, he goes to God. He turns to God in prayer for the strength to finish what they came to do, to help them finish strong. And so we can learn a bunch here about how he responds. to how we can respond to when unjust accusations or allegations come against us. Because if you've ever been around people, I would guess that that's happened to you. And so when this happens to us, a few things I'd give you for advice. The first is this: take a look inside yourself. Are any of the things that they're saying about you true? Is it true? Are your motivations potentially true with what they're saying? Are you doing that for X, Y, and Z? Are pieces of that true? And so we can come and we can recognize that. Secondly, consider what God says. Consider what he would say about how to respond to injustice, to false allegations. Just a few pieces of scripture I want to share with you. First, starting with Jesus in the sometimes difficult teachings of the Beatitudes. Jesus says, "Blessed are you when people insult you." Blessed when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Jesus tells us, get ready. If you're a follower of him, you are going to have false allegations put against you. Be ready. There's going to be falsehood spoken against you, and it's okay. It may be hard during the time, but it is okay, because you have a greater reward waiting for you in comparison to what you'll be going through, the pain that you'll be going through. Blessed are you when people insult you. Paul also says in Romans 12, he teaches us another way to handle this. He says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written. And here he quotes back to Deuteronomy. He quotes God saying, it is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. And then Paul says, on the contrary, and now he quotes Solomon in Proverbs. He says, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not overcome evil, or do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. As God's people, revenge is not for us to give. Very clearly, we are to repay evil with good. It's part of our journey of faith. As we trust God, as we trust Jesus' words to be true, that even when we are going through hard times, even when we're insulted for our faith in God, we know that we can trust that Jesus is true. We can trust that there are better things to come, that he will get us through this. We can trust, as Paul declared, that we can treat people well who treat us poorly. Again, because there's better things to come, because it's the right thing to do, because God himself has declared that that's what we are to do. So we've looked at Jesus, we've looked at Paul, we've looked at Solomon, we've looked at God through Deuteronomy. One more from David in Psalm 7, as he is being chased by his pursuers. Lord my God, I take refuge in you. Save and deliver me from all who pursue me. Here's the part I really love. My shield. Imagine Nehemiah right now saying something similar to this. My shield is God Most High, who saves the upright in heart. God is a righteous judge. You see, Nehemiah, like David before him, and like we should after him, know that amidst all or any allegations, God was the one whose opinion mattered to him. God was his true and righteous judge. He knew that God was the one who knew his heart. God is the one who knew his intentions. God would handle it how he chose to. Nehemiah's trust was in him. And so these three amigos are now 0 for 2. Well, really 0 for 5 or 6 if you count the 4 options, right? They've tried to lure him out of town to most likely ambush him. They've tried to start a rumor against him to watch him react. Let's look at the last one that we'll look at today to distract him. Nehemiah says, one day I went to the house of Shemaiah, son of Delilah, the son of Mehetabel, who was shut in at his home. He said, "Let us meet in the house of God inside the temple, and let us close the temple doors, because men are coming to kill you. By night, they're coming to kill you." But I said, "Should a man like me run away? Or should someone like me go into the temple to save his life? I will not go." I realized that God had not sent him, but that he had prophesied against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. He'd been hired to intimidate me so that I would commit a sin by doing this, and then they would give me a bad name to discredit me. So here we see a tactic. They find somebody that he knows. Nehemiah knows this man well enough that he goes into his house, some type of a meeting or gathering. But he's at this guy's house, so at some level he's got a measure of relationship with him. And that guy, in the point of conversing, probably about all that's going on, "How's it been for you, Nehemiah? What's been going on? Oh, those guys are all upset at you, right? I heard they're trying to kill you." They probably were, right? They probably were trying to kill him out in the desert, but if they couldn't kill him out in the desert, then they're going to come in. And so I got an idea. Let's pull you into the temple. It'll be safe there. God will protect you. That's where God himself is at. You can't be hurt, Nehemiah, if you just protect yourself in the temple. Now, 21st century, we might be like, sounds logical, sounds reasonable that he would maybe think about going somewhere safe like the temple. But Nehemiah, so how did he know that this was false? How did he know that this was a false prophecy? Again, somebody that he probably trusted, because Nehemiah knew that he, as a regular man, even as a governor, was not to go inside the temple that way. That was a special place that God had made sacred for the priests. Nehemiah would have known the story of a former king of Judah named King Uzziah. Uzziah got the throne at a young age. He was one of the good kings of the Old Testament, one that served for 52 years. And it said he was a righteous king. He did right in the eyes of the Lord. He built towers to help fortify Jerusalem and Israel. He built a strong military. While he was in power, the economy flourished. Chronicles tells us that of him, his fame was spread far and wide. Everybody knew who Uzziah was, that he was a good king. But as a result of this, like so many of us do, right? We see somebody get to a certain position, and all of a sudden they start to become entitled. Uzziah became filled with pride. As the king, as the most famous king in that region, potentially of the world, he thought, I'm just going to go into the temple myself, and I'm going to burn incense myself. The priests are good at what they do, but I'm Uzziah, for Pete's sake. I can go into the temple. And so he goes into the temple, burns incense, and the priests come in and they find him. And when he's doing that, they're like, "Whoa, this is not for you to do. You don't belong in here." And he's the king. You know who I am, right? And he gets upset and angry, and like that, on his forehead becomes leprosy. Uzziah, the king of the world, so to speak, the most powerful man that anybody could know in that time, is banished out of society in an instant for all to see, all because of his pride, all because he went into the temple where he wasn't supposed to be. So Nehemiah knew that he did not belong in the temple, that was a sacred and special place. Nehemiah knew that God would never ask him, and therefore that prophecy has to be a sham. And so we continue to see, as we finish up this morning, that Nehemiah is more than just a project manager. He's more than just a great wall builder. He's more than just a follow me kind of a guy. He is a spiritual leader. And everything that he does points people to God. His leadership points people to God. In fact, that's exactly what happened. I'm just going to end with the last couple verses here. So the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. 52 days. When our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid, and they lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done because of my great leadership? No. Had been done with the help of our God. God was the one that had done all of this. through the leadership of a man who was willing to follow him and help others follow him through that. Amazing. We are all leaders. We've been talking about that. You all have a place of leadership in one way or another. It could be tomorrow training a new person at work. It could be that you're the boss at work. It could be that you have grandchildren. It could be that you help in the nursery. It could be you help in youth ministry. You are leading somebody somewhere. Will you be empowered by God to be his leader in the spot that he's given you? That's why we study the Bible. That's why we learn things about a man who lived 2,700 years ago, because he pointed people to God in his leadership. Let's do the same together. Let's pray. Stand with me if you would. God, we thank you so much for your word, which teaches us more than just a great story of another time. But it teaches us about ourselves, how we respond to allegations about us that are false or not all the way true. It reminds us of how everything that we do can and should point others to you. How we handle those situations, how we handle ourselves in the victorious moments as well. God, it's amazing to think about how you worked through Nehemiah and through the people that were there serving with him. Would that happen here? Lord, help us to be found faithful, because we know that you are. God, be with us in the day ahead, in the week ahead, wherever we may go. We trust you with our lives. Amen. Go in peace. Have a fantastic week.